Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of horror stories that you can listen to while you fall asleep. Before the video begins, let us know what time is it and where you are listening from. Also, if you have suggestion for next horror story settings, let us know in the comments. Now let's begin. I never should have looked through that window, but I did, and now I can't sleep, can't eat, can't stop checking my locks every 10 minutes. It started 3 weeks ago when Mrs. Patterson from next door asked me to water her plants while she visited her sister in Portland. Simple favor, right? She gave me her spare key and showed me around her tidy little house. Everything seemed normal. Clean kitchen, floral wallpaper, photographs of grandchildren on the mantel. The plants were in her back bedroom. I watered them Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Same routine each time. Walk through her front door, say hello to her cat Whiskers, water the plants, leave. Easy money for a college student like me. But last Tuesday, something felt different the moment I stepped inside. The house was too quiet. Even Whiskers wasn't there to greet me. I called for him, but got no response. Maybe he was hiding, I thought. Cats do that sometimes. I made my way to the back bedroom, pitcher of water in hand. The plants looked healthy enough. As I bent down to water the African violet on the windowsill, I noticed the window was slightly open. Strange. Mrs. Patterson was obsessive about keeping her windows locked. That's when I saw it. A small piece of fabric caught on the window latch. Red fabric, like from a shirt or dress. My hands started trembling as I reached for it. The material was fresh, not weathered or faded like it had been there for months. Someone had climbed through this window recently. Someone wearing red. I backed away from the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. That's when I heard it. A soft scratching sound coming from somewhere in the house. Scratch, 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 like fingernails dragging across wood. I should have left right then. Should have called the police. Instead, I followed the sound down the hallway toward Mrs. Patterson's bedroom. The scratching grew louder with each step. My mouth went dry. My palms were sweating so badly, I nearly dropped the water pitcher. The sound was coming from inside her closet. I stood frozen outside her bedroom door for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. The scratching stopped. Everything went silent again. Too silent. I pushed the bedroom door open slowly. It creaked on its hinges, and I winced at the sound. Mrs. Patterson's bed was made perfectly, same as always. Her dresser was neat and organized. Nothing seemed out of place, except the closet door was cracked open about 6 inches. I approached it like you would approach a sleeping bear. One careful step at a time. The floorboards groaned under my weight. When I was close enough, I pressed my ear to the door and listened. Nothing. I wrapped my fingers around the door handle and pulled it open. Clothes hung neatly on hangers. Shoes lined up in rows on the floor. Boxes stacked on the top shelf. Everything normal. I almost laughed at myself for being so paranoid. Then I looked down. Whiskers was there, curled up in the corner. But something was wrong with the way he was lying. Too still. Too rigid. When I knelt down and touched him, his fur was cold and matted with something dark and sticky. I jerked my hand back and saw blood on my fingers. That's when I heard breathing behind me. Slow, deliberate breathing that wasn't my own. I turned around and saw a man standing in the bedroom doorway. Tall and thin, wearing a red flannel shirt with a tear in the sleeve. His face was gaunt and pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to look right through me. He was holding a knife. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The only sound was his breathing, and my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A hungry smile. I don't remember running. Don't remember climbing out the bedroom window or sprinting across the yard to my house. The next thing I knew, I was inside my own home with the door locked and deadbolt, calling 911 with shaking fingers. The police came within minutes. They searched Mrs. Patterson's house from top to bottom. They found Whiskers in the closet, just like I said. Poor cat had been dead for days. But they didn't find any man. No signs of forced entry except for that open window in the back bedroom. No fingerprints. No footprints. Nothing. The detective told me it was probably a homeless person looking for a place to stay. Said he must have run off when he heard me coming. Case closed. But I know what I saw, and I know he's still out there somewhere. Mrs. Patterson came back from Portland yesterday. I haven't told her about Whiskers yet. Haven't told her about the man in the red shirt. How can I explain that someone was living in her house, hiding in her closet, waiting? She knocked on my door this morning to thank me for watering her plants. Said everything looked perfect. Even mentioned how clean her house was. That's what's keeping me awake at night. Because if he cleaned up after himself so well that Mrs. Patterson didn't notice anything wrong, then he's not just some random homeless person. He's organized, methodical, careful. And yesterday, when I was getting my mail, I saw him again, standing at the end of the street, watching my house. Still wearing that red flannel shirt. Still smiling that hungry smile. He knows where I live now. The recording. I found the voice recording on my phone this morning. 47 minutes of audio that I never recorded. The timestamp shows it was made last night at 2:14 a.m. while I was sleeping. At first I thought it was some kind of glitch. Maybe I accidentally activated the voice memo app. But when I pressed play, I heard something that made my blood turn to ice. It was my own voice. But I was saying things I never said, having conversations I never had. The recording starts with the sound of my bedroom door opening. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps across my hardwood floor. But here's the thing that makes my skin crawl. I can hear myself breathing in the recording. Deep, steady breathing like someone fast asleep. Then my voice starts talking. But it's not really my voice. It sounds like me, but the tone is wrong. Too flat. Too emotionless. Like someone doing a poor impression of how I speak. Day 37, my voice says in the recording. Subject continues to be unaware. Sleep patterns remain consistent. Medication is working effectively. I've listened to that part 20 times now. Medication? What medication? I don't take any medication except the occasional ibuprofen for headaches. The recording continues with my voice describing my daily routine in clinical detail. What time I woke up yesterday, what I ate for breakfast, who I talked to at work. Things only I would know. But the way my voice describes these things sounds like a scientist taking notes on a lab rat. Subject showed signs of stress when coworker mentioned the missing persons reports. My voice continues. Increased water consumption. Frequent bathroom breaks. Recommendation is to increase dosage. Missing persons reports? I don't remember any conversation about missing people. But as I think back to yesterday, I do remember feeling anxious for no reason. And I did drink a lot of water. Made several trips to the bathroom. The most disturbing part comes around minute 15. I can hear my voice having a full conversation with someone else. But there's no other voice on the recording. Just my responses to questions I can't hear. Yes, the neighbor suspects something, my voice says. No, we should wait. Not yet. Long pause. The others went smoothly. This one will too. Another pause. Thursday night. When the moon is dark. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Thursday night. That's tonight. I tried to remember what I was doing at 2:14 a.m. last night. I take melatonin sometimes when I can't sleep, but I remember going to bed around 11 and sleeping straight through until my alarm. No memory of getting up. No memory of walking around my room or talking to anyone. But the recording proves I was up, moving around, talking. I called my doctor's office, frantic. Told them I needed to see someone immediately. The receptionist put me on hold for 10 minutes before coming back and telling me there was no record of me being a patient there. But I've been going to Dr. Miller for 3 years. I have insurance cards, prescription bottles with his name on them. I rushed home and checked my medicine cabinet. All my prescription bottles were there, but when I looked closer, the labels were wrong. The pharmacy names didn't exist. The addresses led to empty lots. Even the phone numbers were disconnected. That's when I noticed something else. My apartment felt different, like someone had moved things around while I was gone. Not obviously, just tiny changes. My coffee mug was on the wrong side of the sink. The throw pillow on my couch was fluffed differently. My books were in a slightly different order. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know what happened to me. What's still happening to me? Because I found something else when I was searching through my phone. There are other recordings. Dozens of them. Going back months. All made while I was sleeping. All featuring my voice having conversations I don't remember. Describing a life that feels like mine but somehow isn't. In the oldest recording, from 6 months ago, my voice sounds different. More like me. Confused and frightened. I can hear myself asking questions. Where am I? What did you do to me? Please let me go. But with each recording, my voice becomes flatter. More cooperative. more willing to provide information about my daily activities, my relationships, my fears. The most recent recording before last night was different. My voice was giving detailed instructions about something. Room layouts, security systems, entry points, and addresses. Addresses of people I've never met. I looked up those addresses online. Every single one belongs to someone who was reported missing in the past year. People who disappeared without a trace from their homes. People who, according to the news articles, left no signs of struggle. No evidence of break-ins. Like they just vanished into thin air. I've been checking my doors and windows every few minutes since I made this discovery. Everything is locked tight, but locks don't matter if someone already has a key. If someone has been coming and going from my home for months while I sleep. If someone has been using me to gather information about other people before they disappear. The sun is setting now. Thursday night is coming. According to that recording, tonight is when something happens. But I don't know what. And the worst part is, I don't think I'll remember it tomorrow. Because I'm starting to feel drowsy again. That familiar heaviness in my eyelids that I used to think was just natural tiredness. But now I realize it's something else entirely. The medication they mentioned in the recording. Whatever they've been giving me. I can feel it working again. My vision is getting blurry. My thoughts are becoming fuzzy around the edges. And I can hear footsteps outside my front door. If anyone finds this, please know that whatever happens next, it wasn't really me doing it. It was someone else wearing my face, using my voice. The footsteps are getting closer. I think they're coming inside now. The night shift. I should have quit my security job at Riverside Hospital the first night I saw them wheeling out more body bags than patients who had died on my shift. But I needed the money, and night shifts at hospitals always pay better. It started small. Things I could explain away. The elevator going to the basement by itself. Doors I had locked being found open in the morning. Strange sounds coming from the morgue that I convinced myself were just the building settling. But last Tuesday night, I saw something that changed everything. I was doing my rounds at 3 a.m., walking through the empty corridors with my flashlight and clipboard. Most of the hospital was dark except for the emergency lighting and the ICU. My footsteps echoed off the tile floors, creating an eerie rhythm that seemed to follow me wherever I went. When I reached the 4th floor, I noticed something odd. Room 407 had a light on. According to my chart, that room was supposed to be empty. Scheduled for deep cleaning after the last patient was discharged 3 days ago. I approached the room slowly, keys jangling softly on my belt. Through the small window in the door, I could see someone moving around inside. A figure in scrubs, but they were moving strangely. Too quick, too jerky, like a marionette being controlled by an amateur puppeteer. I knocked on the door. "Excuse me, this room is supposed to be vacant." The movement stopped immediately. Complete silence. I waited a few seconds, then used my master key to open the door. The room was empty. No equipment. No furniture except for the bare hospital bed. But the smell hit me immediately. Something metallic and sharp that made my stomach turn. The bathroom door was slightly open, and I could see wet footprints leading toward it. Fresh footprints that were still glistening under the fluorescent lights. I followed the trail, my heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. The bathroom was empty too, but the shower was running. Hot water streaming down, creating steam that fogged up the mirror above the sink. That's when I noticed something written in the condensation on the mirror. Fresh letters spelled out in someone's finger. "Help me!" My hands started shaking as I reached for my radio to call this in. But before I could press the button, I heard something that made my blood freeze. Singing. A woman's voice, soft and melodic, coming from somewhere inside the walls. It sounded like a lullaby, but the words were wrong. Instead of peaceful lyrics about sleep and dreams, she was singing about darkness and pain and being trapped forever. I backed out of the bathroom and headed for the door, but it slammed shut before I could reach it. I grabbed the handle and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. The lock wasn't engaged, but the door felt like it was being held shut from the outside. The singing grew louder and closer. I spun around and saw her. A woman in a hospital gown, standing in the corner of the room where no one had been moments before. Her skin was pale blue, almost translucent. Her hair hung in wet strings around her face. And her eyes. Her eyes were completely black, like someone had filled them with ink. But the worst part was her smile. Wide and unnatural, stretching across her face in a way that human mouths aren't supposed to stretch. "You can see me," she said, and her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "Finally, someone can see me." I pressed myself against the door, fumbling for my radio. But when I looked down at it, the display was flickering with strange symbols I didn't recognize. "They did things to us here," she continued, taking a step closer. "Terrible things. Experiments. We were homeless. Drug addicts. People nobody would miss. They told us we were getting free medical care." My mouth went dry. I wanted to speak, to tell her I would help, but no sound came out. "But we never left," she whispered. "They made sure of that. And now we're part of this place. Part of the walls. Part of the foundation." She pointed toward the floor, and I saw them. Faces pressed against the tile, distorted and screaming silently. Dozens of faces, all trying to push through from underneath. "Dr. Hendricks runs the program," she said. "He picks us from the streets, brings us here for his research. But we don't die properly. Something in his experiments keeps us tethered to this place." I finally found my voice. "What do you want from me?" Her smile grew even wider. "Stop him, before he takes more of us." The door suddenly opened behind me, and I stumbled backward into the hallway. When I looked back into the room, it was empty again. No woman, no faces in the floor, just the smell of disinfectant and something else I couldn't identify. I spent the rest of my shift researching Dr. Hendricks online. What I found made me sick to my stomach. He's been running unauthorized medical trials for years. Experimental treatments on patients who couldn't consent. People without families or social connections. The hospital has been covering it up, paying settlements to keep families quiet. But the missing persons reports tell a different story. Homeless people disappearing from the streets around the hospital. Drug addicts last seen heading to Riverside for free medical care, who never came back. I tried to report what I saw to the hospital administration, but they dismissed it as stress and overwork. Suggested I take some time off. Get some rest. That was a week ago. Tonight is my last shift. I've already put in my resignation, but I had to work one more night to train my replacement. A kid fresh out of college, who has no idea what he's walking into. I've been documenting everything. Taking pictures, recording conversations, building a case that the police can't ignore. But as I write this, sitting at the security desk at 2:45 a.m., I can hear them again. The singing, and footsteps in the hallway above me, even though the fourth floor is supposed to be empty. Dr. Hendricks is here tonight. I saw him arrive an hour ago with a van and several other people in scrubs. They brought someone with them, someone who wasn't walking under their own power. I think they're starting another experiment, and I think they know that I know. The elevator just dinged. Fourth floor. But nobody called for it. The singing is getting louder now. Multiple voices joining in. And I can hear something else mixed in with the melody. Screaming. "I'm going up there. I have to stop this. I have to help whoever they brought in tonight. If something happens to me, if I don't make it through this shift," I've hidden copies of all my evidence in my locker. Locker 247. The combination is my badge number. The elevator is coming back down now, and I can smell that metallic scent again. Stronger this time. I think they're coming for me. The video call. My daughter called me last night at 11:30 p.m. Nothing unusual about that. Sarah often calls late from her college dorm room to chat about her classes or complain about her roommate. But this call was different. The video quality was perfect. Too perfect. Usually our calls are pixelated and laggy because of her campus Wi-Fi, but last night I could see every detail of her face with crystal clarity. She looked exactly like herself. Same brown eyes, same crooked smile, same way of tucking her hair behind her left ear when she talks. We chatted for about 20 minutes. She told me about her psychology exam, about the boy she was dating, about her plans for spring break. Normal conversation. Nothing seemed wrong. But when I woke up this morning, something was nagging at me. A feeling I couldn't shake that something about the call hadn't been right. I was drinking my coffee when it hit me. Sarah had mentioned going to a concert last weekend with her friends. She described the venue, the opening band, even what she wore. But I remembered her calling me that same weekend, crying because she had the flu and couldn't leave her dorm room. I called her immediately. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. I tried again an hour later. Same thing. By lunchtime, I was worried enough to call her roommate Emma. "Oh, Mr. Thompson," Emma said when she answered. I was wondering when someone would call. Sarah never came back from winter break. Her bed hasn't been slept in for 2 weeks. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered on the kitchen floor. Winter break had ended 3 weeks ago. Sarah was supposed to be back at school. We had talked about her returning to campus. She had complained about packing and mentioned being nervous about her new classes. But according to Emma, Sarah never returned to college. I drove the 4 hours to her campus immediately. Emma let me into their dorm room, and Sarah's side looked exactly like someone had left for a short trip and never returned. Clothes still in the laundry basket. Textbooks stacked on her desk. Her laptop was there, but when I tried to turn it on, the hard drive had been wiped clean. Campus security was helpful but useless. They checked their records and confirmed that Sarah's student ID hadn't been used to access any buildings since before winter break. No meal plan activity. No library visits. Nothing. But I had talked to her multiple times over the past 3 weeks. Long conversations about her daily life on campus. I went to the local police, but they seemed skeptical when I tried to explain. They kept asking if Sarah had any reason to run away, if we had been fighting, if she was involved with drugs or dangerous people. Questions that made no sense because I had just talked to her the night before. When I showed them my phone's call history, the officer's expression changed. "Mr. Thompson," he said carefully, "these calls you're showing me, the outgoing calls to Sarah's number, they're all placed to your own phone number." I stared at the screen. He was right. Every call I thought I had made to Sarah over the past 3 weeks had actually been placed to my own number. But that was impossible. I remembered dialing her number. I remembered her answering. "Sir," the officer continued, "are you sure you've been talking to your daughter? Because according to these records, you've been calling yourself." I demanded to see the video calls. The officer helped me access my phone's data, and we found them. Hours of video calls, just like I remembered. But when we played them back, it wasn't Sarah I was talking to. It was me. On the screen, I could see myself sitting in what looked like Sarah's dorm room, but dressed in her clothes. Wearing her jewelry. Speaking in her voice. Having conversations with someone off camera who sounded exactly like me. The voice that I remembered as mine on the calls was actually Sarah's voice. And the person I thought was Sarah was actually me somehow, in her room, wearing her things. But I have no memory of being in that room. No memory of those conversations from the other perspective. According to the timestamps, some of these calls happened while I was at work or asleep. I watched myself respond to questions in Sarah's voice, describing a life at college that seemed real but couldn't be real because Sarah wasn't there. I watched myself nod and smile and act exactly like my daughter, down to her smallest mannerisms. The most recent video from last night's call shows something that makes my stomach turn. In the background, behind the person who looks like me but sounds like Sarah, I can see something on the bed that I hadn't noticed during the actual call. A suitcase, open and half-packed, and next to it, barely visible in the corner of the frame, what looks like Sarah's purse and keys. I'm back home now, staring at my phone. Part of me wants to delete everything and pretend none of this happened. But I can't stop thinking about those other missing people. The ones whose families probably got similar calls. Conversations with loved ones who weren't really there. How many families are out there right now, thinking their missing children are safe at college or work or traveling, because someone is calling them pretending to be their kids? And who is making these calls? How do they know exactly how to sound like Sarah? How do they know her mannerisms, her way of speaking, her memories? My phone is ringing now. Sarah's number on the display. I want to answer it so badly. I want to hear her voice and pretend everything is normal. But I know it's not really her. The question that's keeping me awake is this. If the person in those videos looks exactly like me but isn't me, then where is the real me when these calls happen? And where is my daughter? The phone stopped ringing, but it just started again. I think I'm going to answer it this time, because I need to know who's on the other end. I need to know what they did with Sarah. I moved into the basement apartment on Elm Street because the rent was too good to pass up. $300 a month in a city where studios go for $1,500. The landlord, Mr. Chun, seemed nervous when he showed me around, but I figured he was just eager to fill the space. The apartment was small but clean. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, bathroom with a shower that barely fit 1 person. The only weird thing was that all the windows had been painted black from the inside. When I asked Mr. Chin about it, he mumbled something about privacy and handed me the keys. For the first week, everything was normal. I worked my shifts at the restaurant, came home tired, watched Netflix, went asleep. The neighbors upstairs were quiet. The street was peaceful. I congratulated myself on finding such a good deal. Then I started noticing the sounds. It began with soft scratching noises coming from inside the walls. I figured it was mice or maybe squirrels that had gotten into the space between the floors. Old building, bound to have some pest issues. But the scratching had a pattern to it. 3 short scratches, pause, 3 long scratches, pause, 3 short scratches again. Like someone tapping out Morse code. I mentioned it to Mr. Chun when I saw him collecting mail from the other tenants. He got that same nervous look and told me he would have an exterminator come by. But no exterminator ever showed up. The scratching continued every night around 2 a.m. Always the same pattern. Always coming from the wall behind my bed. 2 weeks in, I decided to investigate. I bought a small hammer from the hardware store and carefully made a hole in the drywall where the sound was loudest. Just big enough to peek through with a flashlight. What I saw made me drop the hammer. There was another room behind my bedroom wall. A small space, maybe 6 feet by 6 feet, with no door or windows. And sitting in the corner was a pile of old blankets and what looked like food containers. Empty water bottles. A bucket that I didn't want to think about too hard. Someone had been living in that space. Recently. I made the hole bigger, large enough to crawl through. The smell that came out was awful. Unwashed bodies and human waste, and something else that reminded me of spoiled meat. Inside the hidden room, I found more than just evidence that someone had been living there. I found notebooks. Dozens of them, filled with handwriting in different languages. But even though I couldn't read most of it, the drawings were clear enough. Sketches of the apartment layout. Detailed maps showing where I kept my food, where I slept, when I came and went. Page after page of observations about my daily routine, written in different handwriting styles. Like multiple people had been taking turns watching me. The newest notebook was in English. The entries were dated from the day I moved in. New tenant arrived. Male, early 20s, works nights at restaurant. Sleeps heavy. Leaves apartment empty 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. Tuesday through Saturday. Tenant showers every morning at 7 a.m. Uses back bedroom for sleep. Front room for eating. Pattern consistent. Tenant drinks milk directly from carton. Leaves dirty dishes in sink for 3 days at a time. Watches same Netflix shows repeatedly. I flipped through more pages, my hands shaking. The entries got more detailed. More personal. Tenant talks to himself while cooking. Mentions mother in Chicago frequently. Seems lonely. Tenant cries sometimes while watching romantic movies. Pauses frequently to check phone for messages that don't come. Tenant takes sleeping pills on Sunday nights. Sleeps until noon on Mondays. Deep sleep. Heavy breathing. Would not wake easily. The last entry was from yesterday. Tenant has noticed the sounds. Making hole in wall tonight. Time to relocate to backup position. Continue observation from apartment 3B. Apartment 3B. That was directly above me. I scrambled out of the hidden room and grabbed my phone to call the police. But before I could dial, I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving from room to room in exactly the same pattern I followed every night when I got home. They were mimicking my routine, learning it, perfecting it. I crept to my front door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but I could see that the door to apartment 3B was slightly open. Just a crack, but enough for someone to watch who came and went from my apartment. That's when I realized the truth about my cheap rent. I wasn't a tenant. I was a subject. I gathered my most important belongings as quietly as possible and snuck out through the basement's back exit. I've been staying at a motel across town for the past 3 days, trying to figure out what to do. Yesterday, I drove by my old building. There was a moving truck outside, and I saw a young woman carrying boxes into my basement apartment. She looked excited, happy, probably thought she had found an amazing deal. I wanted to warn her, but how do you explain something like this? How do you tell someone that their new home comes with hidden observers who document their every move? I called Mr. Chen's number, but it's been disconnected. I tried to contact the property management company, but there's no record of the building being managed by anyone. According to city records, the building doesn't officially have a basement apartment. I don't exist in their system. Never did. Last night, I got a phone call from an unknown number. When I answered, there was just breathing on the other end. Then a voice I didn't recognize said 4 words that made my blood run cold. "We know where you are." They hung up before I could respond. I've been driving all night, switching motels every few hours. but I keep seeing the same car in my rearview mirror. A black sedan with tinted windows that stays exactly 3 cars behind me no matter where I go. I don't know who they are or what they want. I don't know how many people they've done this to or why they choose their subjects. But I know they're still watching, and I know that wherever I go next, they'll be there too. I found the SD card in my camera bag yesterday, tucked between my lens caps where it didn't belong. A plain black micro SD card with no label, nothing to indicate where it came from or what was on it. I'm a wedding photographer, so I go through dozens of memory cards every month. But this one wasn't mine. I keep meticulous records of all my equipment, and this card wasn't in any of my inventories. My first thought was that it belonged to one of my clients. Maybe it had fallen out of their phone or camera during a shoot. I decided to plug it into my computer to see if I could identify the owner and return it. What I found instead changed everything. The card contained over 300 video files, all filmed in night vision. Green-tinted footage that showed people sleeping in their beds. The timestamps went back 18 months. At first, I thought I was looking at some kind of sleep study data, medical research footage. But as I watched more files, I realized these weren't voluntary subjects. These were people being filmed without their knowledge in their own bedrooms. The videos were organized by folders with street addresses. I recognized some of the locations. Houses in my neighborhood. Apartments across town where I had shot weddings or portraits. My hands started shaking when I opened a folder labeled with my own address. There I was sleeping in my bed. Dozens of videos spanning the past 6 months. Footage of me tossing and turning, talking in my sleep, getting up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. The camera angle suggested it had been taken from inside my closet, looking out at my bed. Someone had been in my bedroom. Repeatedly. Setting up cameras while I slept. I scrolled through more folders with growing horror. I recognized neighbors, co-workers, even some of my wedding clients. All of them filmed without consent in their most private moments. But the worst files were in a folder called Selections. These videos were different. Instead of just passive observation, they showed someone moving around inside the bedrooms while people slept. A dark figure creeping closer to the beds, standing over sleeping victims for long minutes, sometimes reaching out as if to touch them before pulling back. In one video, I watched this person rifle through a woman's dresser drawers while she slept 5 feet away. In another, they stood at the foot of a man's bed for over an hour, just watching him breathe. The figure was always careful to stay in shadows, face hidden by a hood or mask. But their movements were familiar. The way they tilted their head when observing. The nervous habit of flexing their fingers. I had seen these mannerisms before. I spent the rest of the day going through old photos from my wedding shoots, looking for anyone who matched the body type and movements of the figure in the videos. It took hours, but I finally found what I was looking for. A guest at the Martinez wedding last spring. Someone who had lingered at the edge of every group photo, always watching, but never fully participating. In one candid shot, I had captured them looking directly at my camera with an expression that made me uncomfortable even then. I remembered this person because they had asked me detailed questions about my equipment, specifically about my camera bag and how I organized my memory cards. The metadata on the videos confirmed my suspicion. They were all filmed with the same type of night vision camera I use for low-light wedding photography. Equipment that this person would have known about from our conversation. I called the police immediately. Detective Martinez arrived within an hour and took the memory card as evidence. She seemed professional but skeptical until I showed her the video of the figure in my own bedroom. "Mr. Johnson," she said carefully, "when was the last time you checked your bedroom for hidden cameras?" I had never checked. The thought had never occurred to me. We went to my house together and did a thorough search. What we found made my stomach turn. 3 cameras. One hidden in my closet, exactly where I had guessed from the video angle. Another disguised as a smoke detector on my ceiling. The third tucked behind books on my bookshelf. All of them were still recording. Detective Martinez called for backup and a crime scene team. While we waited for them to arrive, she asked me to think carefully about everyone who had been in my house recently. Clients, friends, service workers, anyone who might have had the opportunity to plant the cameras. That's when I remembered something that made my blood freeze. 2 months ago, I had hired someone to help me reorganize my home office and equipment storage. I had found them through an online marketplace, advertising photography equipment organization services. They had spent an entire day in my house, going through every room to catalog my gear. They had handled all of my camera bags. They knew exactly how I stored my memory cards. And I had paid them cash, never asked for identification, never kept any record of their real name. Detective Martinez ran the phone number I had used to contact them. Disconnected. The email address bounced back. The online profile had been deleted. The crime scene team found cameras in 12 other houses on my street alone, all installed by someone with intimate knowledge of photography equipment and security systems. But here's what's keeping me awake at night. When the detective was cataloging the evidence, she noticed something I had missed. The timestamps on the videos in my folder didn't match when I was actually sleeping. According to the metadata, I was being filmed during times when I was provably somewhere else. At weddings, at work, out of town visiting my sister, which means someone else was in my bed during those recordings. Someone who knew my schedule well enough to sleep in my house when I wasn't there. Someone who had been using my home like their own personal hotel room for months. The police are still investigating, but they haven't found any leads. No fingerprints on the cameras. No DNA evidence. Whoever did this was careful and experienced. I've moved out of my house. I'm staying with friends until they catch this person. But I keep thinking about all those other addresses on the memory card. All those other victims who still don't know they're being watched. And I keep wondering about something the detective mentioned during our interview. If this person was sophisticated enough to plant cameras in dozens of homes without being caught, why would they leave a memory card full of evidence in my camera bag where I was guaranteed to find it? Unless they wanted me to find it. Unless this was all part of something bigger. My phone is ringing now. Unknown number. It's been ringing every hour for the past 3 days, but when I answer, no one speaks. I think they want me to know they're still watching. I think this is just the beginning. I woke up in my car yesterday morning parked outside a house I had never seen before. My clothes were dirty, my hands were covered in mud, and I had no memory of how I got there. The last thing I remembered was going to bed Sunday night after watching a movie. But according to my phone, it was Tuesday morning. Somehow, I had lost an entire day. At first, I thought maybe I had been drinking and blacked out. But I don't drink anymore. Haven't touched alcohol in 3 years since my accident. And there was no taste of booze in my mouth, no hangover headache. I started my car and drove home, trying to piece together what might have happened. My apartment looked normal. Bed was unmade like I had slept in it, but that could have been from Sunday night. No signs of a break-in. Nothing missing that I could tell. But when I checked my phone more carefully, I found things that made my stomach drop. 17 missed calls from my job. Dozens of unread text messages asking where I was, if I was okay, why I hadn't shown up for work on Monday. My boss had even threatened to fire me if I didn't call back immediately. I had missed an entire day of work with no explanation. There were other things too. My car's odometer showed I had driven almost 200 miles since Sunday. My gas tank was nearly empty when it had been full. And there were photos on my phone. Photos I didn't remember taking. Pictures of that same house where I had woken up. But these weren't casual snapshots. They were detailed surveillance photos. Images of every window, every entrance, every possible way in or out. Taken from different angles and distances like someone was planning something. The timestamps showed I had taken these photos throughout Monday afternoon and evening. I drove back to the house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. It was a small ranch-style home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Well-maintained yard, kids' toys scattered on the front porch, 2 cars in the driveway. A normal family home. I sat in my car across the street, staring at the house and trying to remember why I had been there. Why I had taken those photos. What I had been planning. That's when I saw the news van pull up. Then another. Within minutes, there were police cars, ambulances, news crews all surrounding the house. I watched in horror as paramedics wheeled out a covered stretcher. Then another. And another. A reporter was already setting up for a live broadcast. I rolled down my window to hear what she was saying. 3 members of the Johnson family were found dead in their home early this morning by a neighbor who became concerned when newspapers started piling up. Police are treating this as a homicide investigation. The Johnson family. The people who lived in the house where I had woken up. I drove away as fast as I could without attracting attention. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. Had I witnessed something? Had I been there during the murders? Or worse, back at home, I searched through every inch of my apartment looking for clues about what I had done during those missing hours. In my laundry hamper, I found the clothes I must have been wearing. They smelled like dirt and something else. Something chemical that burned my nose. I found more photos on my phone that I had missed before. These were taken inside the Johnson house. Pictures of family photos on the walls, the layout of rooms, close-ups of doors and windows from the inside. I had been inside their house, while they were still alive, based on the timestamps. But I had no memory of going inside. No memory of meeting the Johnson family. No memory of anything that happened after Sunday night. I called the police tip line, my voice shaking. Told them I might have information about the Johnson murders. When Detective Williams arrived at my apartment an hour later, I showed him everything. The photos, my car's mileage, my missing memories. He listened to everything I said, taking notes. Then he asked me to come to the station for questioning. Am I a suspect? I asked. Right now, you're a person of interest, he said. But Mr. Peterson, I have to ask, have you been experiencing any blackouts or memory loss recently? I told him this was the first time. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was true. There had been other mornings recently when I felt confused about what day it was. Times when I couldn't remember how I had gotten somewhere or what I had done the night before. At the police station, Detective Williams showed me more evidence. Security camera footage from a gas station near the Johnson house. The timestamp showed Monday evening, during my missing hours. In the video, I watched myself pump gas into my car. But something was wrong with the way I was moving. Too stiff. Too mechanical. Like I was following programmed instructions rather than acting naturally. Mr. Peterson, Detective Williams said carefully, do you remember stopping for gas on Monday night? I stared at the screen. I could see myself clearly, but it felt like watching a stranger. No memory at all. Have you been taking any new medications? He asked. Seeing any new doctors? Any recent changes to your routine? I thought about it. 2 months ago, I had started going to a new therapist for my anxiety and sleep problems. Dr. Reynolds had been helping me with relaxation techniques and stress management. He had given me some herbal supplements to help me sleep better. Detective Williams wrote down Dr. Reynolds' name and contact information. We're going to need to speak with him. But when they tried to call Dr. Reynolds' office, the number was disconnected. When they went to the address I had given them, they found an empty office suite that had been vacant for 6 months. Dr. Reynolds didn't exist. Neither did the therapy clinic where I thought I had been receiving treatment. But I had clear memories of our sessions. I could describe his office in detail, remember our conversations, recall the exact taste of the herbal supplements he had given me. Someone had implanted false memories of receiving therapy while doing something else to me during those appointments. The police are still investigating, but they found something in my blood work that explained the missing time. Traces of a powerful sedative combined with a drug that causes temporary amnesia. The kind of cocktail that could keep someone unconscious and compliant for hours. Detective Williams thinks I was drugged and used as an unwitting accomplice in the Johnson murders. That someone has been dosing me regularly and programming me to carry out tasks I wouldn't remember. But here's what terrifies me most. If I was being controlled during the Johnson murders, how many other crimes have I committed during blackouts I don't even remember having? How long has this been going on? And whoever is doing this to me, they're still out there. Still have access to me somehow. Because this morning I woke up with mud under my fingernails again, and there are new photos on my phone. I woke up in my car yesterday morning parked outside a house I had never seen before. My clothes were dirty, my hands were covered in mud, and I had no memory of how I got there. The last thing I remembered was going to bed Sunday night after watching a movie. But according to my phone, it was Tuesday morning. Somehow, I had lost an entire day. At first, I thought maybe I had been drinking and blacked out. But I don't drink anymore. Haven't touched alcohol in 3 years since my accident. And there was no taste of booze in my mouth, no hangover headache. I started my car and drove home, trying to piece together what might have happened. My apartment looked normal. Bed was unmade like I had slept in it, but that could have been from Sunday night. No signs of a break-in. Nothing missing that I could tell. But when I checked my phone more carefully, I found things that made my stomach drop. 17 missed calls from my job. Dozens of unread text messages asking where I was, if I was okay, why I hadn't shown up for work on Monday. My boss had even threatened to fire me if I didn't call back immediately. I had missed an entire day of work with no explanation. There were other things too. My car's odometer showed I had driven almost 200 miles since Sunday. My gas tank was nearly empty when it had been full. And there were photos on my phone. Photos I didn't remember taking. Pictures of that same house where I had woken up. But these weren't casual snapshots. They were detailed surveillance photos. Images of every window, every entrance, every possible way in or out. Taken from different angles and distances like someone was planning something. The timestamps showed I had taken these photos throughout Monday afternoon and evening. I drove back to the house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. It was a small ranch-style home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Well-maintained yard, kids' toys scattered on the front porch, 2 cars in the driveway. A normal family home. I sat in my car across the street, staring at the house and trying to remember why I had been there. Why I had taken those photos. What I had been planning. That's when I saw the news van pull up. Then another. Within minutes, there were police cars, ambulances, news crews all surrounding the house. I watched in horror as paramedics wheeled out a covered stretcher. Then another. And another. A reporter was already setting up for a live broadcast. I rolled down my window to hear what she was saying. 3 members of the Johnson family were found dead in their home early this morning by a neighbor who became concerned when newspapers started piling up. Police are treating this as a homicide investigation. The Johnson family. The people who lived in the house where I had woken up. I drove away as fast as I could without attracting attention. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. Had I witnessed something? Had I been there during the murders? Or worse, back at home, I searched through every inch of my apartment looking for clues about what I had done during those missing hours. In my laundry hamper, I found the clothes I must have been wearing. They smelled like dirt and something else. Something chemical that burned my nose. I found more photos on my phone that I had missed before. These were taken inside the Johnson house. Pictures of family photos on the walls, the layout of rooms, close-ups of doors and windows from the inside. I had been inside their house, while they were still alive based on the timestamps. But I had no memory of going inside. No memory of meeting the Johnson family. No memory of anything that happened after Sunday night. I called the police tip line, my voice shaking. Told them I might have information about the Johnson murders. When Detective Williams arrived at my apartment an hour later, I showed him everything. The photos, my car's mileage, my missing memories. He listened to everything I said, taking notes. Then he asked me to come to the station for questioning. Am I a suspect? I asked. Right now, you're a person of interest, he said. But Mr. Peterson, I have to ask. Have you been experiencing any blackouts or memory loss recently? I told him this was the first time. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was true. There had been other mornings recently when I felt confused about what day it was. Times when I couldn't remember how I had gotten somewhere or what I had done the night before. At the police station, Detective Williams showed me more evidence. Security camera footage from a gas station near the Johnson house. The timestamp showed Monday evening, during my missing hours. In the video, I watched myself pump gas into my car. But something was wrong with the way I was moving. Too stiff. Too mechanical. Like I was following programmed instructions rather than acting naturally. Mr. Peterson, Detective Williams said carefully, do you remember stopping for gas on Monday night? I stared at the screen. I could see myself clearly, but it felt like watching a stranger. No memory at all. Have you been taking any new medications? He asked. Seeing any new doctors? Any recent changes to your routine? I thought about it. 2 months ago, I had started going to a new therapist for my anxiety and sleep problems. Dr. Reynolds had been helping me with relaxation techniques and stress management. He had given me some herbal supplements to help me sleep better. Detective Williams wrote down Dr. Reynolds' name and contact information. We're going to need to speak with him. But when they tried to call Dr. Reynolds' office, the number was disconnected. When they went to the address I had given them, they found an empty office suite that had been vacant for 6 months. Dr. Reynolds didn't exist. Neither did the therapy clinic where I thought I had been receiving treatment. But I had clear memories of our sessions. I could describe his office in detail, remember our conversations, recall the exact taste of the herbal supplements he had given me. Someone had implanted false memories of receiving therapy while doing something else to me during those appointments. The police are still investigating, but they found something in my blood work that explained the missing time. Traces of a powerful sedative combined with a drug that causes temporary amnesia. The kind of cocktail that could keep someone unconscious and compliant for hours. Detective Williams thinks I was drugged and used as an unwitting accomplice in the Johnson murders. That someone has been dosing me regularly and programming me to carry out tasks I wouldn't remember. But here's what terrifies me most. If I was being controlled during the Johnson murders, how many other crimes have I committed during blackouts I don't even remember having? How long has this been going on? And whoever is doing this to me, they're still out there. Still have access to me somehow. Because this morning I woke up with mud under my fingernails again, and there are new photos on my phone. The interview. I should have known something was wrong when they scheduled my job interview for 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. But I was desperate for work, and the salary they offered over the phone was more than I had ever made. The address led me to a nondescript office building downtown. Most of the floors were dark except for the 7th floor, where a single window glowed with fluorescent light. That's where I was supposed to meet Ms. Rodriguez for the interview. The lobby was empty and unlocked. No security guard, no receptionist. Just me and the sound of my footsteps echoing off the marble floors. The elevator worked, but it moved slowly, groaning between floors like it was carrying too much weight. The 7th floor hallway was lined with identical doors, each marked only with numbers. No company names or directory signs. I found room 712 and knocked. "Come in," a woman's voice called from inside. Ms. Rodriguez was exactly what I expected from our phone conversation. Professional suit, neat hair, confident handshake. Her office was sparse but clean. Just a desk, 2 chairs, and a filing cabinet. Nothing on the walls except a clock that ticked loudly in the silence. The interview started normally. Questions about my experience, my availability, my references. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, nodding at my answers. "The position requires discretion," she said. "You would be working with sensitive information. Confidential client data. Can you handle that responsibility?" I assured her I could. I needed this job. "Excellent," she said, standing up. "I'd like to show you the work environment. Give you a sense of what your daily tasks would involve." She led me out of her office and down the hall to another room. This one was larger, filled with computer workstations and filing cabinets. But what caught my attention immediately were the photographs covering every wall. Hundreds of photos, all of different people. Men, women, children. Some looked like school pictures or family portraits. Others were clearly taken without the subjects knowing. Surveillance photos taken from a distance. "These are our clients," Ms. Rodriguez explained, noticing my stare. "Your job would be maintaining their files, updating their information, tracking their movements and activities." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What kind of business is this exactly?" "Information services," she said smoothly. "We provide detailed background research for various organizations. Very lucrative work." She handed me a file folder. "This would be your first assignment. Study it tonight, familiarize yourself with the subject. You'll start active monitoring tomorrow." I opened the folder and felt my knees go weak. It was a file about me. My full name, address, social security number, work history. Photos of my apartment building, my car, my usual walking routes. Detailed notes about my schedule, my habits, even my grocery shopping patterns. "I don't understand," I managed to say. "Oh, but you do," Ms. Rodriguez replied, and her voice had changed. "Become colder. You've been one of our subjects for 6 months now. We've been documenting your life very thoroughly." I looked around the room again and saw my own face staring back at me from dozens of photographs on the walls. Pictures taken through my windows, photos of me eating lunch, images of me entering and leaving buildings around the city. "We've been particularly interested in your financial situation," she continued. "Your desperation for employment. Your willingness to take a job without asking too many questions." My mouth went dry. "What do you want from me?" "The same thing we want from all our employees," she said. "Complete cooperation." That's when I noticed the other people in the room. 5 or 6 individuals who had been sitting so quietly at the computer workstations that I hadn't seen them when I walked in. They were all staring at me now with blank expressions. "Meet your co-workers," Ms. Rodriguez said. They all started as subjects too, but they adapted well to their new roles. One of them, a woman about my age, turned around in her chair. Her eyes were unfocused, and when she smiled, it didn't reach her eyes. "You'll like it here," she said in a flat, emotionless voice. "The work is very rewarding." I backed toward the door, but it was already closed. I hadn't heard anyone close it. "Where are you going?" Ms. Rodriguez asked. "We haven't finished the interview process." I tried the door handle. Locked. The position comes with excellent benefits, she continued, pulling something out of her desk drawer. A syringe filled with clear liquid. Health insurance. Retirement planning. And best of all, you'll never have to worry about finding work again. I pounded on the door, screaming for help. But the building was empty except for us. No one could hear me. The orientation process is simple, Ms. Rodriguez said, walking toward me with the syringe. A few injections to help with memory management. Some training sessions to adjust your personality. Nothing too invasive. The other employees were standing up now, moving to block any escape route. Their movements were coordinated but unnatural, like they were following preset commands. "Don't fight it," the woman said in that same flat voice. "Fighting only makes the adjustment period longer." I looked around desperately for anything I could use as a weapon. That's when I noticed something that made my heart stop. On one of the computer screens, I could see live surveillance footage of my apartment. My bedroom, specifically. And there was someone in my bed. Someone who looked exactly like me. "Who is that?" I whispered. Ms. Rodriguez followed my gaze and smiled. "Your replacement. Very convincing, isn't he? Your friends and family won't notice the difference." I stared at the screen in horror. The person in my bed moved and turned over, and for a moment, I could see their face clearly. It was my face, but the expression was wrong. Even in sleep, it looked too peaceful, too controlled. "We've been preparing him for weeks," Ms. Rodriguez said. "Studying your mannerisms, your speech patterns, your relationships. He knows everything about your life because we know everything about your life." The syringe was getting closer now. I could smell the antiseptic on Ms. Rodriguez's hands. "What happens to me?" I asked. "You become part of our team," she said. "Just like your co-workers here. You'll help us study our subjects, gather information, prepare the next batch of replacements." I looked at the other employees again and realized what I was seeing. These weren't willing participants. They were victims like me, turned into tools for creating more victims. "How many people have you replaced?" I whispered. "More than you might think," she replied. "Less than we need." The needle was almost at my arm when the fire alarm went off. Loud, piercing sound that filled the room and made everyone freeze. In the confusion, I managed to break free and run for the door. It was unlocked now, probably released automatically by the fire system. I ran down 7 flights of stairs and burst out of the building into the cold night air. Behind me, I could hear them following, their footsteps echoing in the stairwell. I didn't stop running until I reached the police station 6 blocks away. The officers who took my statement seemed skeptical until I showed them the file with my personal information. Information that no legitimate business should have had access to. When they raided the building 2 hours later, it was empty. All the computers were gone. All the photographs had been removed from the walls. The only thing left was my file folder, sitting open on Ms. Rodriguez's desk like a calling card. But here's what keeps me awake at night. The police checked with my landlord, my employer, my bank. According to their records, I never missed any days of work. Never missed any rent payments. Never exhibited any unusual behavior. Someone who looks like me has been living my life for months. And I have no idea where the real me has been during that time. The police are monitoring my apartment now, but the person pretending to be me hasn't returned. My job thinks I'm taking a sick leave. My friends think I'm visiting family out of state. Everyone in my life is interacting with someone who isn't me, and they don't even know it. I'm staying in a safe house while the investigation continues, but I keep thinking about what Ms. Rodriguez said, about there being more replacements than I might think. How many of my friends are really my friends? How many of my co-workers are the people I think they are? How many families are having dinner tonight with someone who just looks like their loved one? And the question that terrifies me most, if they can replace me so perfectly that no one notices the difference, what else can they do? Yesterday, my replacement called my mother. I know because she left me a voicemail thanking me for the lovely conversation and mentioning how much better I sounded, how much happier I seemed. She said I told her I had found a new purpose in life, a new job that I really loved. The police played me the voicemail, and I heard my own voice telling my mother that everything was perfect, that she didn't need to worry about me anymore. But it wasn't my voice saying those words. It was someone else who had learned to sound exactly like me. And now they're out there, living my life better than I ever did. I started babysitting for the Morrison family 3 months ago. Easy job, good pay, and their 8-year-old daughter Emma was sweet and well-behaved. The parents went out every Friday night for date night, and I would watch Emma until they returned around midnight. Emma never gave me any trouble. She would eat her dinner, we would watch a movie together, and she would go to bed by 9 without any fuss. Perfect kid. But last Friday night, something felt different from the moment I walked into their house. Emma was sitting at the kitchen table, coloring in a book like always. But when I said hello, she didn't look up. Just kept coloring with intense concentration, pressing the crayon so hard against the paper that it was leaving deep grooves. "What are you drawing?" I asked, sitting down next to her. She finally looked up at me, and I noticed something strange about her expression. Her usual bright smile was gone, replaced by a flat, serious look that seemed too mature for an 8-year-old. "I'm drawing the people who live in our walls," she said matter-of-factly. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of imagination game. "What kind of people?" Emma turned the coloring book toward me. Instead of the cartoon characters that were printed on the page, she had drawn dark figures with elongated limbs crawling through what looked like air ducts or ventilation shafts. "They come out at night when Mommy and Daddy are sleeping," she said. "They walk around our house and look at our things." A chill ran down my spine, but I kept my voice light. "Emma, that sounds like a scary dream. People don't really live in walls." "They're not people," she corrected me. "They just look like people." I decided to change the subject and suggested we watch a movie. Emma picked her usual animated film, but she didn't laugh at the funny parts like she normally did. She just stared at the screen with that same serious expression. Around 8:30, I told her it was time to get ready for bed. She nodded and headed upstairs to brush her teeth. While she was gone, I tidied up the living room and noticed something that made me pause. The air vent near the ceiling had scratch marks around the edges. Fresh scratches in the paint, like someone had been removing and replacing the vent cover repeatedly. Emma came back downstairs in her pajamas and climbed into bed without being asked. Usually I had to remind her 2 or 3 times. "Will you check my closet?" she asked as I tucked her in. "For monsters?" I smiled. "For the people," she said seriously. "They hide in there sometimes during the day." I opened her closet door and looked inside. Just clothes and toys and shoes. Nothing unusual. But Emma shook her head. "You have to check behind the back wall," she insisted. "There's a door back there." I pushed aside her hanging clothes and felt around the back wall of the closet. My fingers found what felt like a seam in the drywall. When I pressed against it, a section of the wall moved slightly inward. It was a hidden panel. I pushed harder, and the panel swung open like a small door, revealing a narrow crawl space that led into darkness. The smell that came out was musty and stale, like an attic that hadn't been opened in years. "See," Emma said from her bed. "That's how they get in." I closed the panel quickly and sat down on the edge of her bed. "Emma, how long have you known about that door?" "Since we moved here," she said. "I used to hear them moving around at night, so I looked until I found where they were coming from." The Morrison family had lived in this house for 2 years, which meant Emma had been dealing with the knowledge that strangers were crawling through hidden passages in her home for most of her childhood. "Have you told your parents about this?" Emma shook her head. "They don't believe me. They think I have bad dreams." I stayed with Emma until she fell asleep, but I couldn't stop thinking about that hidden panel. Who had built it? Why was it there? And who might be using it to access the house? Around 10 p.m., I heard a soft thudding sound coming from somewhere above us. Footsteps in the attic, moving slowly from one end of the house to the other. The Morrison parents weren't supposed to be home until midnight. I crept upstairs to investigate, my phone in my hand ready to call 911. The footsteps stopped when I reached the second-floor landing. Everything went quiet. Too quiet. I checked every room upstairs. All empty. But in the master bedroom, I noticed something that made my heart race. The bed had been disturbed. The covers were pulled back like someone had been lying there recently. And on the nightstand was a glass of water that was still cold, condensation beating on the outside. Someone had been in the Morrisons' bed while I was downstairs with Emma. I heard the front door open and close. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison were home early. "How was Emma tonight?" Mrs. Morrison called up the stairs. "Fine." I called back, but my voice sounded strange even to me. She went to bed on time. They came upstairs to check on Emma while I gathered my things. Normal routine. But when Mr. Morrison handed me my payment, I noticed something that made my stomach turn. His hands were dirty. Not just dirty, but covered in what looked like dust and debris, like he had been crawling through small spaces. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing my stare. Your hands, I said without thinking. He looked down at them and chuckled. Messy work tonight. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was, but I was starting to have suspicions. We won't need you next Friday, Mrs. Morrison said as she walked me to the door. Family emergency. Emma will be staying with her grandmother for a while. I left the house with my mind racing. Everything about tonight felt wrong. Emma's behavior, the hidden panel, the sounds in the attic, Mr. Morrison's dirty hands. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Emma had said about the people in the walls not really being people. This morning, I called the Morrison house to check on Emma. The number had been disconnected. I drove by their house around noon. There was a moving truck in the driveway and strangers loading furniture. When I asked one of the movers about the Morrison family, he told me the house had been sold weeks ago. But I had just been there last night. I went to the police, but they couldn't find any record of a Morrison family ever living at that address. No Emma enrolled in the local elementary school. No utility bills or property records under that name. According to official records, the family I had been babysitting for didn't exist. But I have 3 months' worth of text messages from Mrs. Morrison. Photos on my phone from Emma's birthday party. Payment stubs from babysitting jobs. Evidence of a family that apparently never existed. The detective who took my statement seemed concerned when I showed him the photos on my phone. Not because of the missing family, but because of something he noticed in the background of Emma's birthday pictures. Ma'am, he said carefully, look at this photo more closely. Do you see anything unusual about the other children at this party? I studied the image. Emma was blowing out candles on her cake, surrounded by other kids who looked like her classmates or neighbors. But when I looked closer, I realized something that made my hands start shaking. All the other children in the photo had the exact same face. Not similar faces. The exact same face, repeated on different bodies. Like someone had photoshopped the same child into the picture multiple times. Not similar faces. The exact same face, repeated on different bodies. Like someone had photoshopped the same child into the picture multiple times. Ma'am, the detective said quietly, I think you need to consider the possibility that you've been experiencing some kind of elaborate psychological manipulation. I'm writing this from a hotel room where I've been staying since that conversation with the police. I've been going through all my photos and videos from the past 3 months, and I'm finding more evidence that nothing about the Morrison family was real. In every photo, the faces are wrong. Repeated features. Identical expressions. Even Emma herself looks slightly different from picture to picture, like someone was getting better at creating her appearance over time. But here's what scares me most. If the Morrison family wasn't real, then who was I talking to all those nights? Who was the little girl I tucked into bed? And what were they preparing me for during those 3 months of fake babysitting jobs? Because yesterday, I got a call from another family. The Hendersons. They need a babysitter for their 9-year-old son. The pay is excellent, and they want to meet me tonight, at 11 p.m.